Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. The Making of a Princess. On a warm summer's day, July 1st, 1961, in Norfolk, England, a baby girl was born who would one day capture the hearts of millions around the world. Her name was Diana Frances Spencer. At first glance, she seemed like any other child of a noble family, but those who were close to her noticed something different, a quiet light that set her apart even in her earliest years. She was the fourth of 5 children, and while her family belonged to the aristocracy, her childhood was far from perfect. Diana grew up in the grand but sometimes lonely halls of her family estate. Her father, Edward Spencer, and her mother, Frances Roche, were both aristocrats, but their marriage was troubled. When Diana was just 7 years old, her parents' relationship collapsed, and they divorced. For a young child, this was a deeply painful experience. She often found herself caught between two worlds, longing for the warmth of a united family, but learning instead to adapt to the sadness that surrounded her. It was here, in these fragile early years, that Diana first began to understand resilience, the strength to keep going, even when life felt broken. As a girl, Diana was shy and often quiet. Teachers described her as gentle, sometimes reserved, but her eyes always sparkled with kindness. She wasn't the best student in academics, but she excelled in subjects that required creativity and compassion. She loved music, dancing, and especially children. Even as a teenager, she had a natural way of making people feel seen and loved. She would spend hours with young children, playing with them or helping those in need, without seeking attention or recognition. Diana's heart, even then, beat with an uncommon generosity. Despite her shyness, there was something magnetic about her. People were drawn to her warmth, her soft voice, and the way she seemed to genuinely care about everyone she met. Beneath her modest nature was a young woman with a remarkable gift, the ability to touch lives simply by being herself. It was in 1977, when Diana was just 16, that fate intervened. At a gathering, she met Prince Charles, the heir to the British throne. Charles was more than a decade older than Diana, already a public figure bound by duty, formality, and the constant gaze of the press. But when his eyes fell upon Diana, something about her innocence, her honesty, and her gentle smile captured his attention. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply herself, kind, genuine, and refreshingly real. For Diana, the idea of being connected to royalty was overwhelming. She was still a teenager, still figuring out who she was, but suddenly she was thrust into the spotlight. The media followed her every move, capturing her image, analyzing her character, and turning her into a subject of fascination. Yet, through it all, Diana remained humble, never losing that sweetness and sincerity that had first drawn Charles to her. On July 29th, 1981, the world witnessed what would later be called the wedding of the century. At St. Paul's Cathedral in London, Diana walked down the aisle in a breathtaking ivory gown with a 25-foot-long train, a vision that looked as though it had been lifted from the pages of a fairy tale. Millions watched on television, and thousands crowded the streets of London to catch a glimpse of the radiant young bride. The girl from Norfolk, once shy and quiet, now stood in front of the entire world as Princess Diana. Her soft smile and graceful walk captured hearts everywhere. To many, she looked like a real-life princess, straight from a storybook, the kind every child dreamed of becoming. But behind the glamour and the grandeur, Diana's heart carried the same dreams it always had, dreams of love, of family, and of making a difference in people's lives. The wedding marked the beginning of Diana's journey in the public eye. Overnight, she became one of the most famous women in the world. Yet what truly set her apart wasn't the crown on her head or the title she now carried. It was her spirit, gentle, compassionate, and unshakably kind. The making of a princess wasn't found in her dress, her jewels, or her royal duties. It was in her ability to remain herself, to hold on to her humanity, and to continue being Diana, the young girl whose heart was always full of love. Little did the world know, this was only the beginning of a story that would inspire generations.
Chapter 2. Love, Struggles, and Purpose. When Diana married Prince Charles, the world expected a fairy tale. She was young, beautiful, and full of hope, stepping into the role of wife and future queen with dreams of a happy family. Soon after, she became a mother to Prince William in 1982, and later to Prince Harry in 1984. Motherhood brought Diana her greatest joy. She was determined to give her children a childhood full of warmth, love, and normal experiences. Unlike many royals, she insisted on dropping William and Harry off at school herself, giving them hugs, and making sure they knew she was present in their lives, not only as a princess, but as a mother first. Yet behind the palace walls, Diana's life was far from perfect. The expectations of royal duty weighed heavily on her, and the constant presence of cameras made her every move a headline. She felt trapped in a world where appearances mattered more than feelings. Her marriage with Prince Charles, which had once seemed like a dream, began to unravel. Charles's long-standing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles cast a long shadow over their union, leaving Diana feeling betrayed and alone. In public, she smiled and carried out her duties, but in private, she battled with deep sadness and struggles that few could see. Despite her personal heartbreak, Diana refused to let pain define her. Instead, she chose to turn her struggles into a force for good. She found strength in empathy, using her position to draw attention to people who were often ignored. In the 1980s, when fear and stigma surrounded HIV and AIDS, Diana shocked the world by visiting patients in hospitals, sitting beside them, and most importantly, shaking their hands without gloves. At a time when misinformation made people believe that even touch could spread the disease, her simple act sent a powerful message of compassion and humanity. It told the world that people with AIDS deserved dignity, care, and love. Her courage didn't stop there. In 1997, she traveled to Angola with the Halo Trust, walking across a minefield in protective gear. Photographs of her carefully stepping among landmines made global headlines. It wasn't just about the danger. It was about showing the human cost of war, about standing with the victims whose lives had been destroyed by hidden weapons in the ground. Diana's actions brought worldwide attention to the campaign to ban landmines, proving that her voice carried the power to change international policy. In these moments, Diana redefined what it meant to be a princess. She was no longer simply a royal figure. She became the people's princess. She connected not with titles, but with hearts. Wherever she went, she knelt down to speak with children, embraced the sick, and comforted the grieving. She didn't hide behind protocol or distance. She broke barriers with love and humility. At the same time, her marriage continued to crumble. The royal household could not hide the cracks forever, and the press became relentless in documenting every conflict and rumor. In 1992, Diana and Charles officially separated, and by 1996, their divorce was finalized. For Diana, it was both painful and liberating. She lost her formal royal title of Her Royal Highness, but she gained something even greater, the freedom to live as her true self. After the divorce, Diana poured even more energy into her humanitarian work. She expanded her causes beyond AIDS and landmines, becoming a global advocate for the homeless, the poor, and children in need. She spoke with honesty about her struggles with mental health, shining a light on issues that had long been hidden in silence. By speaking openly, she gave hope to countless people who felt alone in their battles. Diana's journey in this chapter of her life was not one of perfection, but of transformation. She began as a young bride, searching for love and belonging, but through struggle and heartbreak, she discovered a deeper purpose. She realized that her true power was not in being a princess in name, but in being a voice for those who had none. Every smile she shared, every hand she held, and every barrier she broke showed the world that kindness could be stronger than tradition, and compassion more powerful than any crown. Her story in these years is one of love, for her children, for humanity, and ultimately for the idea that even in pain, one can create light for others. It was this balance of vulnerability and strength that made Diana unforgettable. She was no longer just a figure in a royal fairy tale. She was a woman who turned her struggles into purpose and used her heart to change the world. Chapter 3: Legacy of Love and Courage. As the 1990s progressed, Diana had already transformed from a shy young bride into one of the most admired women in the world. No longer bound by the expectations of palace life, she found freedom in focusing on what mattered most to her: people. Her final years were a period of deep personal reflection and renewed purpose. She no longer carried the title, Her Royal Highness, yet she had something far greater: the love and respect of millions who saw in her a rare combination of vulnerability and courage. Her humanitarian efforts only grew stronger during this time. Diana continued to champion causes close to her heart, working tirelessly with organizations that supported AIDS patients, leprosy victims, the homeless, and children in crisis. She did not just write checks or appear at fundraisers. She visited hospitals, shelters, and war zones, personally connecting with those who suffered most. She gave a human face to issues the world often preferred to ignore. Many who met her recalled how she listened as though their words were the most important in the world, no matter who they were. For them, Diana wasn't just a princess. She was hope itself. Her openness about her own struggles made her even more relatable. In a world where royals were expected to appear perfect, Diana spoke candidly about her battles with depression, eating disorders, and loneliness. She revealed the pain behind the palace walls, but instead of seeking pity, she used her honesty to help others. Millions of people who had once suffered in silence began to feel less alone, encouraged by her willingness to show that even the most admired woman on earth had her own wounds to heal. Still, Diana's life was never free from the relentless attention of the media. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, At airports, outside restaurants, even on vacations with her children. The world's fascination with her seemed endless, and though she longed for privacy, her face remained on the front pages of newspapers across the globe. Yet she carried herself with grace, never letting the glare of cameras stop her from her mission of a kindness. Then came the tragic night of August 31st, 1997, in Paris. Diana, chased by photographers, was fatally injured in a car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. The news shocked the world. People wept openly in the streets, struggling to accept that someone so full of life, love, and light could be gone so suddenly. The grief was not limited to Britain. It spread across continents, uniting people in mourning. For many, it felt as though they had lost a family member. But Diana's story did not end with her death. Her legacy lived on, and still does, in countless ways. Her two sons, William and Harry, inherited her compassion and commitment to service. Both have carried forward her causes, particularly in areas of mental health, children's welfare, and humanitarian aid. Through them, the world sees echoes of their mother's warmth, her laughter, and her courage. Her influence also lives on in the charities she touched, many of which still carry her name or continue the work she began. Campaigns she supported, like the movement against landmines, gained international momentum after her death. The images of her walking through minefields remain some of the most powerful symbols of humanitarian courage in modern history. Beyond her sons and charities, Diana left behind something even larger, a shift in how the world viewed kindness, compassion, and the role of public figures. She showed that true beauty is not in titles, crowns, or wealth, but in the ability to make others feel seen, valued, and loved. She used her platform not for herself, but to uplift those who had no voice. That is why, decades later, she is still remembered not as a perfect princess, but as a real, imperfect woman who cared deeply. Her life teaches us that resilience is born out of struggle, that compassion can change perceptions, and that the simplest acts of love, a smile, a hug, a hand extended without judgment, can echo louder than any speech. Diana's courage to be herself in a world that demanded perfection gave others permission to embrace their own truths. Even today, people around the world speak of her as the people's princess, not because of her royal status, but because she belonged to the people, to those she comforted, inspired, and lifted with her kindness. Her legacy reminds us that greatness is not measured by power or privilege, but by the love we give and the lives we touch. In the end, Diana's story is one of love and courage. She lived with grace, endured pain with honesty, and chose compassion as her lasting gift to humanity. Though her life was cut tragically short, her spirit continues to shine, reminding the world that true beauty lies not in crowns, but in hearts that dare to care.